back, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to join me for today's video. I got a lot of love on my Las Vegas Raiders video and what their place is in the AFC West that I dropped last week. Check that out if you haven't yet. And so I thought I'd do something kind of similar with America's favorite or most popular team, the Dallas Cowboys. So what I want to do in today's video is take a look at, can the Dallas Cowboys repeat as division champions? In the video, we're going to look over, first and foremost, how the NFC East played out last season. We're going to look at the Eagles, the Commanders, and the Giants, what they added, what they lost in the offseason. And we're also going to dive then about the key pieces that the Cowboys added and lost during their offseason thus far. We're going to finish it off by taking a deep dive into the Cowboys' defense, their offense, and finally their head coaching position to answer the question if we believe the Cowboys can get it done for a second straight season. But before we get into all of that, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider giving me a like and a subscribe. The support, it means so very much to me and enables me to do what I love. That way I can keep bringing you guys the content that you love. With that done, let's get into this version of Hot Off the Press. To kick it off, we're going to start with how the NFC East played out last season. The Dallas Cowboys, who finished 12-5, started out really hot and were able to parlay that into the number 3 seed in the NFC. Now, they did have a shot at the number 1 overall seed over the last couple weeks of the season, but they did not get the help that they needed to make that a possibility. The Eagles snuck in, they were 9-8 and were the exact opposite of the Dallas Cowboys. They started off slow before picking it up towards the end of the last half of the year. They did get the help that they needed to find a way into those playoffs before getting absolutely smoked by the Bucs. The Washington Commanders, formerly the football team, had a chance to get into the playoffs until the last couple weeks of last year, but injuries derailed any chances that they may have had. They ended up falling up just short. The New York used to play football giants, finished 4-13, and they were widely considered one of the bottom teams in the league for almost the entire year. So what key pieces did the 3 bottom teams in this division lose? We're going to start in Philadelphia with the Eagles. Now, their key additions, my favorite and one of the best in the offseason, was edge rusher Hassan Reddick. He signed over from Arizona. They also re-signed center Jason Kelce, edge Derek Barnett, and running back Boston Scott. Some of their key losses include edge rusher Ryan Kerrigan and running back Jordan Howard. Now, Philadelphia, in its history, has usually done a great job of keeping talented players at home. This year was no different. They re-signed most of their key guys this offseason. They were also to make that splash move that I was talking about in locking up Hassan Reddick to a 3-year deal for $45 million. I love this move. It was the number 6 move in my top 10 moves of the NFL offseason video. Make sure you check that out if you haven't done it already. Reddick is an absolute stud pass rusher. He's got 23.5 sacks over the last couple seasons, and that ranks 5th in the NFL. He's still really young, and Philly got him, not only locking him in for a decent amount of time, but they also got a steal as far as the financials are concerned. He's going to help this Eagles defense that was solid but not spectacular for most of last season, and he's going to take some pressure off of that secondary, which was sorely needed. The loss of Jordan Howard is mitigated quite a bit by that re-signing of Boston Scott. And who knows, maybe it's actually going to force the Eagles to give Miles Sanders, who they drafted to be the guy, a real shot at the starting gig in the backfield. Sanders has been one of the most explosive players per touch in the NFL early on in his career, but he's been used sparingly in his first couple seasons. He's struggled with injuries a bit in the Eagles' defense, but it is time to let him loose and see what this kid can do. At least allow him the opportunity to prove that he's a guy. Maybe he's not. Philly's season is certainly going to be dictated by the maturation of their young signal caller. I think that is quite obvious. We've seen excellent spurts of Jalen Hurts, and he's a fantasy superstar, but it has not quite translated into consistent success on the field. He can be erratic in the pocket at times. He struggles with accuracy as well, and those things are going to need to change if he's going to be viewed as a cornerstone to this franchise. Devontae Smith is basically begging for it at this point. I'm not sure how long of a leash Hurts has, but Eagles fans always seem to shorten the timing of that sort of thing regardless. If Hurts is able to elevate, the Eagles could push Dallas for the NFC East crown. Next, we're going to head to Washington, where the Commanders, of course, made that big trade to go get quarterback Carson Wentz. They also signed guard Andrew Norwell over from Jacksonville, and they were able to re-sign running back J.D. McKissic, as well as left tackle Cornelius Lucas and safety Bobby McCain. Now, some of the losses include right guard Brandon Scherf, left guard Eric Flowers, tight end Ricky Seals-Jones, who filled in admirably with injuries piling up at that position, and inside defensive linemen in Tim Settle and Matt Ioannidis. Oh, Washington. Let's just get this out of the way. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of the Carson Wentz trade, check out my video on it. Or you can check out my 10 worst moves of the NFL offseason video. He is on there too. Spoiler alert, I did not like the Commanders' move. Carson Wentz is arguably an upgrade over Taylor Heineke, to be sure, but not at the price that Washington paid to get him as their starting quarterback. I'm not going to ramble, but I do not get the move. Outside of the quarterback position, though, the Commanders may just have something. Scary Terry McLaurin is an absolute stud on the outside, and I am a firm believer in Antonio Gibson as a breakout candidate for this season. That is, as long as he has both of his shins this year. What in the world was the medical staff doing or not doing with him last year? J.D. McKissic was an underrated re-signing for this team. I love them bringing him back. He meshes well with what the Commanders want to do on offense. Now, Washington's defense was, I'd say, a little rocky to start last season before they finished off the year strong, and as strong as we expected them to start it. Their defensive line took quite a hit with some losses, but as long as Chase Young is in town and healthy, they are going to be just fine. This team kind of feels like an outside looking in sort of playoff team, but maybe Wentz proves me wrong. Gibson and McLaurin, they could certainly go nuclear at any given time, and the defense, if it plays solid for an entire season, there's a possibility. Now, I wouldn't count on it, but stranger things have certainly happened. Before we get to Dallas, we have one more team to review in New York, and that's the Giants, who had a couple key additions. First and foremost, quarterback Tyrod Taylor, right guard Mark Glowinski, and they re-signed wide receiver Sterling Shepard and linebacker Blake Martinez. A couple key losses for them: inside defensive lineman Austin Johnson, left tackle Nate Soldier, edge Lorenzo Carter, and tight end ×2 Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. So I guess we're going to the bottom of the barrel now. The Giants have been rebuilding for an eternity, it seems like. They have one winning season since 2013, and I do not expect that to change in 2022. Now, personally, I would have moved on from Daniel Jones and that experiment this past offseason, but maybe New York felt that they had to give him one more chance with a hopefully healthy group of wide receivers and Saquon Barkley. Jones has been inconsistent, to say the least, and his career in the NFL can basically be summed up by his hilarious touchdown, but not against the Eagles. Look that up if you haven't seen it. It will give you quite a chuckle. Looks like he's got it all together, and he's running nothing but blue skies, and then it unravels rather painfully. I think this defense is going to be solid once again, but they're likely going to have to be absolutely fantastic to keep the offense, which scored 15.2 points per game last season, second worst in the league, afloat. It should be better with Saquon Barkley ready to roll, but the injuries with him are now a fairly major concern. If pass catchers can stay on the field for the Giants and Jones takes a step forward, they might just sniff 500. Now to Dallas, where the Cowboys didn't really go out and bring anyone in as much as they did focus on trying to keep as many of their own in the building as possible. They were able to re-sign edge rusher DeMarcus Lawrence, safety Jaron Kearse, linebacker Leighton Vander Esch, wide receiver Michael Gallup, and tight end Dalton Schultz. Their losses were fairly significant. Edge Randy Gregory is now gone. They also had to trade away wide receiver Amari Cooper, and Cedric Wilson Jr. also exited stage left. Tight end Blake Jarwin, kicker Greg Zuerlein, and guard Connor Williams have also left the building. Now to the star of the show in Dallas. Yeah, I know that sucked, but I regret nothing. We're gonna start with the offseason moves, most of which were fairly solid, but one sticks out to me that was not ideal. I love the re-signings of some of those key players, especially Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup. DeMarcus Lawrence is more of a question mark, I think, than Cowboys fans would like to admit. He needs a rebound year in the worst way, as he is now 3 years removed from his last double-digit sack campaign. Without as much competition, I think that Michael Gallup has a career year and he really breaks out here. The competition leaving, though, that is my biggest problem with Dallas's moves. And you can blame Zeke and his ridiculous, massive contract for that. If you've been listening to me at all over the course of my videos, I've never been a proponent for paying running backs, so let me show you what Exhibit A looks like when you do. Dallas basically had no choice but to ship out Amari Cooper if the boys hoped to keep the rest of their core intact. So they gave him away for pennies on the dollar, which is also known as a 5th-round pick, to the Browns. That is just poor business and team building from the front office. Now, I think that the Connor Williams loss hurts a little bit, but it's not too bad because he was one of the most penalized offensive linemen in the entire league. Then again, the Cowboys as a team had more penalties than anybody else, so maybe there's a deeper issue there. Let's get into the defense now before we head to that offense. The Cowboys defense certainly deserves some recognition. Seemingly out of nowhere, Dallas became a fearsome team for offenses to have to try and go up against. Now, Mika Parsons was a big reason for that. The AP Defensive Rookie of the Year had a very real chance at flat out getting the AP Defensive Player of the Year award. He racked up 13 sacks, 20 tackles for loss, and 30 quarterback hits as an first-team All-Pro. He made 11 NFL teams that passed on him in the draft look silly in doing so, and he is set to be a star for years to come. Dallas found a gem. The very mention of his name brings tears to the eyes of Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, and Daniel Jones. And can we really blame him? Now, he anchors a defense that has been completely turned around by defensive coordinator Dan Quinn in his first year in Dallas, no less. You can love him or hate him, but Trevon Diggs led the NFL with 11 interceptions last year. That was 3 more than J.C. Jackson in second place, and that was almost twice as many as the third place finisher who had 6. He's an aggressive playmaker who fits really well into what Dallas likes to do on defense. When that offense is scoring points, and they do that a lot, it frees him up to be able to make big plays. Now, even though he sometimes gets overly aggressive at times, and he pays the price for it, it's worth it for what Dallas is able to do with those turnovers. Now, with Jaron Kearse also coming back after he was re-signed, Dallas's secondary should once again be able to wreak havoc. Even with the loss of Randy Gregory up front, the Cowboys are likely going to have a unit that will rank in the top half of the league, and a top 10 finish is not out of the question. To the offense, and back to Zeke, whose knee issue flared up towards the end of the regular season after a really hot start. He was definitely outplayed by Tony Pollard in spurts, but I think that the call for Pollard to take the reins completely from Zeke were overblown and a moot point as soon as Pollard suffered that foot injury against the New Orleans Saints. To his credit, Zeke did play through whatever issues that he was having, and he completed the year, and he did so with a solid amount of success. Dallas may elect to split touches more in 2022 in order to preserve their big money back, and I think that'd probably be a really wise decision on their part. Pollard has shown himself to be more than capable with limited touches, and it would allow the Cowboys to save that tread on the tires towards the playoffs when everything is on the line. And I'm sure they wish they would have done that last year. They form one of the better 1-2 punches at tailback in all of football, and they're going to help mitigate the loss of 2 out of their top 4 wideouts from free agency. The other thing that helps? Having the #1 offensive line in the league, according to PFF. Of the 5 O-linemen that received a grade of 90 or above, Dallas had 2 of them in Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. The Mark Lewinsky signing coming from Indianapolis is going to help fill the void left by Connor Williams, and he graded within 5 points of him, according to PFF, so the drop-off there should not be too big. This elite unit is once again going to protect Dak Prescott and carve out holes for this offense and the running game. They are the main reason that this offense is going to once again be among the league's best. Dalton Schultz is set to build off of an impressive breakout campaign, and I expect him to take an even bigger role in 2022. He's gonna have to now that Blake Jarwin is gone, and Dallas was really smart in locking him up. Now, I maybe was a year off with CeeDee Lamb and that coming out party that I predicted last season, but the former number 17 overall pick back in 2020 is certainly going to have a career year in 2022. You can book it. With Cooper out of town, Lamb is primed for a massive leap forward as Prescott's go-to guy. I would not be surprised to see CeeDee top 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. This kid is a flat-out stud. I think that James Washington coming over from Pittsburgh helps out a little bit, and he plays more of that Cedric Wilson Jr. role now that he's gone. But the targets here are going to be funneled to Lamb, Gallup, and Dalton Schultz almost exclusively. This offense is going to light it up once again. Now to the leader of the offense, and for me, a fairly polarizing player. He probably is for many Cowboys fans too, who are still trying to figure out why the heck he decided to run the ball against the 49ers on the last play of last season. I'm wary for other reasons, but that certainly did not help his case. So for me, Dak has always been like the guy who can put up big numbers when things don't really matter. I know a lot about this stuff, a ton, okay? Kirk Cousins is my quarterback. On paper, Prescott is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but the eye test just does not match up. Dak always seems to rack up statistics late or against subpar opponents, the most elite of garbage time quarterbacks for me. The stats back it up. Prescott is just 8-17 against teams with winning records, and his touchdown to interception ratio dips significantly based on the competition that he is facing. Now, he has repeatedly absolutely demolished the NFC East. He's gone 16-2 against potentially the worst division in all of football. So kudos for him to winning the games that he's supposed to win. But outside of the division, he's just 14-20 over the last 4 years. All that being said though, the Cowboys still play in the NFC East, and Dak is still going to continue to crush them, period. Prescott will do so, putting up monster numbers with as good of a chance as anybody at sweeping his division. He's probably going to throw around 30 touchdowns, flirt with a 100+ quarterback rating, and have the Cowboys in the playoffs. Once he's there, though, he's got to look to improve his career 1-3 record in the playoffs. Now, the final piece to this puzzle is not one that I'm particularly fond of, and my Minnesota bias may be showing, but I've never thought that Mike McCarthy is all that special. He certainly won a ton of games as a head coach, but for years, he was carried by Aaron Rodgers' greatness, and ever since, he's been carried by the best team in a less than stellar division. The only thing that could potentially change my mind is a few playoff victories. So we're gonna see when or if that comes to fruition. But he's rightfully been questioned about his clock management ad nauseum. And I'm not exactly sure what he even does, to be honest. I believe that the Cowboys win games in spite of him, not because of him. To finish the video off, Dallas once again has the best roster in this division, even with the massive losses in the offseason. They have the best quarterback, and it's not even close as well. So I would be surprised if they do not once again dominate the NFC East, and take home that division title. The only team here within striking distance for me is Philly, but I believe that they're going to come up just short of pulling it off. Cowboys fans should be amped heading into 2022. And that will do it. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you learned something. If you're new to the channel, you haven't done it yet for whatever reason, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe. Your support is so very appreciated to my current subscribers out there. Thank you guys so much. I could not do this without you. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.